how to apply base coat and mesh. Welcome back to episode 5 of this install guide. In this video we're going to be taking a closer look at how base coat and mesh are applied to your EWI project. A base coat reinforcement layer is an essential component of any EWI system. It works hand in hand with the other layers in the system to protect your external walls. It's long been reported that a base coat layer provides a long-lasting and crack-free finish. Not only is a base coat important for structural integrity, but it also improves the overall appearance of the finished facade. Before we start looking at process, it's worth mentioning that by this point, all your insulation should be level and secured to the wall. All your beading and verge trims should be fitted and installed. And finally, all your tools and mixing buckets should be clean and ready to use. Do go back and re-watch our previous episodes if you're unsure. With that in mind, let's get started. Step 1 is to choose a base coat. We have already covered this previously in our insulation video, but as a fresh reminder, EWI Pro sell a range of dual-purpose base coat adhesives, each tailor-made to best suit different EWI projects. For those of you working on a render-only project, we highly recommend using EWI 225 Premium Base Coat, perhaps our strongest and most versatile base coat. For a more affordable alternative, you could also consider using our new 222P Performance Base Coat. For those of you insulating with EPS, we always suggest using EWI 220 EPS Base Coat, which is specially enhanced to bond with the EPS material. For those of you insulating with Kingspan or Rockwool, we would again recommend using EWI 225 Premium Base Coat, which is ideal for this type of heavier insulation. 225 would also be advised when using render carrier board or working on an ICF construction. Step 2 is to check the weather forecast. This may seem like common sense, but the success of your base coat will depend massively on the conditions in which it was applied. All base coat work must be protected from rain, snow, strong winds, and direct sunlight. Never apply any base coat in temperatures below 5 degrees Celsius or over 30 degrees Celsius. Next, you'll need to mix the base coat. All our base coats require paddle mixing with clean, cold water before they are ready to use. Each base coat requires a different amount of water, so do give a quick check to the instructions on the packaging. These numbers are provided purely as a guide, but you may prefer to change the amount of water depending on the application technique being used. Mix the base coat with water until you have achieved an even consistency. Leave the bucket for 5 to 10 minutes after mixing and then give it that all-important second mix. Now it's time to apply the base coat and the mesh. For those of you that don't know, fiberglass mesh is another component in all our EWI systems which works to prevent the facade from cracking. Depending on your project, you may opt to use our standard strength mesh, or if you require additional impact resistance, you may choose to use high strength panzer mesh instead. Base coat and mesh are applied together, but there are 3 techniques to choose from when it comes to putting it on the wall. The one pass method applies 4 to 6 mil of base coat using a steel notched trowel. The fiberglass mesh is then embedded within the base coat in vertical strips using your trowel's flat edge. The 2-pass method initially applies only half the base coat, around 3 to 4 mil. Then the mesh is placed on top in vertical strips and embedded with the flat edge of a notched trowel. Another coat of base coat is then applied onto the mesh at a thickness of 2 to 3 mil, and it's crucial that you do this while the first coat is still wet. Whilst both methods are reliable and effective, large commercial projects will benefit massively from spray applying base coat. Spray machines are powerful tools for any installer, given the time that they save and the convenience they offer. Our base coats work with most market spray machines such as Euromare and Coletta. Some are powerful enough to spray up to 40 bags of 225 in under an hour. This rate of coverage is impossible to match by hand applying. Regardless of the method you choose to use, each strip of fiberglass mesh should overlap its neighbouring strip by roughly 100 to 150 mil. Bear in mind that high-stress corner areas, such as those on window and door frames, always require a second layer of mesh. Often called a stress patch, these are laid on at 45 degrees and are usually 300 to 500 mil wide. Like the vertical strips of mesh, the stress patches also need embedding into the base coat. Step 5. Achieve a clean and smooth finish. Whilst it may be tempting to settle for a slightly uneven base coat, it's going to become a real problem when applying your silicone render, especially if you're using a smaller grain size like 1 mil. Once you've embedded the mesh, and whilst the base coat is still workable, do yourself a favour and make the facade as smooth as possible. Whilst there is no official technique for making the facade smooth, most installers achieve this using a trowel or speed skim, but it's not uncommon to rub up the base coat layer with a sponge float as well. Once complete, your base coat layer should be no thicker than 6 mil. Your final step is to wait for the base coat to dry. As you'll expect, the base coat drying time depends entirely on the weather conditions. Typically, this can be anywhere from 24 to 72 hours, and in some cases even longer. Once it's dry, you are ready to move on to applying the decorative silicone render, which we will cover next in our install guide series. All products mentioned in this video are available from EWI Pro approved distributors. If you do have any specific product questions, do head over to our website where you'll be able to find blog posts and the contact details of our technical team. Thanks for watching this video, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one.